right. Why don't we start off with the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II then?
Okay, very cool. So, I'll probably come out and say that Sony smartphones probably aren't as popular in the United States as they are in other parts of the world, but they make some very, very good smartphones. The Sony Xperia line of phones is particularly this one I have right here, which is majorly blown out because of my light. This phone is, like I say, an Android-based smartphone. It has three cameras on it. It has a 16, a 24, and a 70 millimeter lens. All each have 12 megapixel sensors. But this phone actually borrows a lot of technology from Sony's Alpha line of cameras, which really makes it stand out in the phone world.
And that makes a whole lot of sense because when they were designing this phone, they were really trying to find a way to make it appeal more to creators. And I guess
Yeah.
that's also why you know, there's the Xperia 1 Mark II and then there's the Xperia 1 Mark II Pro. And one of the major differences is the Pro can be used as like an external monitor, sort
hmm
of.
Yeah,
But this is
absolutely.
designed to like be like sort of like the Pro's compact.
Yeah, it's kind of it will make a good companion camera for anyone that's shooting Sony Alpha cameras, particularly because if you use the Sony Pro camera app, the interface looks just like Sony Alpha cameras, apart from the latest ones because they got an updated menu, but the interface is exactly the same. So you could easily jump from using your camera to this phone and have a seamless experience.
Now, Brett, you and I personally, we are Apple people in terms of
hmm
phones.
Yep, that's correct.
Um, what other Apple devices do you use?
I use the iPhone 11 Pro Max personally. That's been my daily driver phone for the last year and a half.
But I know that you also had an iMac and then you sold it and then you built a PC. Don't you have
Yeah,
iPads too?
I do have iPads. Yes, I do.
And you have an Apple Watch.
I do have an Apple Watch. Yeah, the only thing that changed is I sold the iMac.
That's right. Makes
hmm
sense. And you don't have a laptop at all.
No, I sure don't.
Okay, yeah. So otherwise, you're pretty much fully into the Apple ecosystem.
hmm
And when it came to using a, a phone like this, ergonomically, I'm sure it was different. And just before we go on, I'm also going to let everyone know that like we're not going into stuff like call quality and
hmm
like apps and all that kind of stuff. It makes no sense. Like you can get that everywhere else. We're reviewing this like an actual camera.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
so ergonomically speaking, like you have the 11 Pro Max, you said?
I do have the 11 Pro Max. Yeah, this is the 11 Pro Max right here, and this is the Xperia One Two.
Now,
Um,
the 11 Pro Max, I remember, has like very rounded edges, and the Xperia is pretty like flat, right?
Yeah, this phone is, as you can tell, well, you can probably tell from here, but the phone is very narrow and very long, which is completely different from an iPhone. An iPhone is a lot wider and a lot shorter. Um, this means you have a lot more screen real estate on this camera, and I'll show you. Oh, it's even tracking my face. How about that? That's pretty cool. So yeah, you have a lot of screen real estate on here. The phone is interesting to use just because of its design. It's also a solid slab of glass, so it's very slippery when you hold it. You do need to have a case on this, I feel, if you're going to be out walking about with it, just because of that.
We should also let everyone know that the display that you see there is the Sony Pro camera app right now. But there is
Yes.
this other display where like the camera button. Show everyone where the camera button is really quickly.
The shutter button, it does
Yeah,
have a dedicated shutter button on the top, which is actually right here. It's kind of hard to see,
yeah,
but
but
there is a dedicated shutter button there.
yeah, and when it's asleep, you can usually like hold that button down and it'll bring up a camera, but it's in that case then it's just the normal camera. It's
It's the
not the
Google
pro
camera.
camera interface.
Right, absolutely. Now, I haven't actually gone in there to see if you can reassign that. I'm sure you probably can. But yeah, if you hold it down to wake it up, it will launch the Google camera by default.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well too. Because I when also in addition to that, I spent some time with the phone as well too. We were working on some sponsored content with Sony. Just to let you know, this segment is not sponsored.
hmm
It's really like what we feel about the phone.
Yep,
Um,
definitely.
so ease of use though, like it's very similar to Alpha cameras.
Yeah, absolutely. The menu layout, I mean, it's just going to sleep here, but I'll bring it up as close as I can, trying to cut down on the reflections. The
Bring
layout
it
is,
back to your face, man.
can you see that? I'm trying to
Uh,
minimize the reflections there.
a little bit. It's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah. Well, if you go into the menu system, like the quick menu on the Alpha cameras that you'll see on the back of the LCD, it has all of the same options on there for your tracking. You can select, obviously single point. You can select continual autofocus. You can select single point. You can select wide tracking. It's just like using, say, an A7 III. It's got that type of menu system on there. So being able to dive in there and have those options, and if, like say, if you've used a Sony camera, you'll just feel right at home with it.
And also because it's a small sensor, it's also pretty great for stuff like street photography. I was able to do that with this phone. Basically, I just walk around and, let's say this is the phone right here. I'd just walk around and I'd just be like this, and then
Yep.
I'd shoot and I'd walk by something and I'd keep going. And like you'll hear the burst.
Oh yeah, and this does have 20 frames a second burst on here in JPEG. In RAW mode, I do believe it is just one single shot, but in JPEG you can shoot 20 frames a second.
Yeah, absolutely. Gino is asking what camera lens is on the Sony phone.
It's actually it's got three Zeiss lenses on here. You've got a 16, a 24, and a 70 millimeter lens. All have their own individual 12 megapixel sensors in them.
That's so much more sensical than what Apple has.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll talk about Apple soon, but I
Hmm.
mean, I when I was using this phone, I actually thought to myself, I'm like, I could totally go to this. I could absolutely use this. The problem is that I would lose the ecosystem that I have with Apple. One of the biggest things that I use as a journalist is AirDrop.
I love AirDrop.
AirDrop is so fantastic.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It really is. But I mean, it's it's a personal preference thing. I mean, I wouldn't let Android or iOS stop you because they really are kind of similar, apart from features like AirDrop and iMessage. They're very very similar um, operating systems.
Yeah. Now, when you were walking around, obviously
Hmm.
you had both phones with you.
Yep.
What did the difference feel like? Did it feel stark to you?
No, it really didn't. I mean, the biggest shock is going to be the overall form factor, the size, because this, like I say, this phone is very thin and very long and very slippery, and it's really hard to get a good solid grip on it. I thought. Um, it was a couple of times I went to pick it up and almost felt it slipping out of my hands. Especially as well, like yesterday, it was cold, it was rainy, it was misty, foggy, and I never just really trusted myself using this phone without having a case on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I mean, I guess okay, you're gonna have to put a case on it. But then,
Hmm.
other than that, I mean, it still is incredibly capable, and I think
Oh
it's
yeah.
incredibly capable to the point of being like a backup for
Hmm.
a photographer or a journalist. However, I don't really think any phone's raw files are really capable of like holding their own with a dedicated interchangeable lens camera yet.
No, definitely not. I mean, this has I think it's a 1.17-inch sensor. I mean, it's just physics. The amount of light that these sensors can take in and utilize is minuscule compared to a traditional camera. Having said that, the fact that you can actually shoot raw and you can go in and use like a mobile editor like Lightroom Mobile and edit your files on the go is fantastic. I mean, I had some shots yesterday that I edited, and I was able to bring out a lot of detail from the shadows and was able to bring back the highlights, and it just gave a very pleasing image overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we were finding, because we did a whole lot of work with this phone, and then we also talked to people that have actually just bought the phone themselves. It's capable of doing astrophotography.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the great things with this phone is it has a fully manual mode. So you can change your ISO, you can change your shutter speed. The only thing you can't change is the aperture. Well, the only way you can change the aperture is by selecting different lenses. But I think these lenses are all like f1.7. Um, but yeah, you can set this up on a tripod with a smartphone mount, and you can shoot astrophotography just by switching out the ISOs and the shutter speeds.
Yeah, absolutely. We're also going to remind you folks to go ahead and leave comments on Facebook or in the chat or something like that. We'll get back to them as soon as we can. Um, how about we share some photos?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, just to preface this is a combination of photos that both Brett and I have shot. This is Brett's wonderful dog,
This is Austin.
Austin. He's a good boy.
He is the goodest boy.
Yeah. It's the other dog.
Yep, this is Duke, and this was me playing around with the camera and setting up some static lights, just to kind of see what we could get out of the camera, and the images were fantastic. I'll go on and say right here that the phone does have face tracking, and that also does include eye tracking, and it does work on animals as well. So when I was taking these images, the phone was tracking my dog's eyes absolutely perfectly, just like a regular Sony Alpha camera would.
And part of that was also due to the lighting situation you were in, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. How is it? I shot this one because I like food.
That
So,
does look pretty good.
I mean, it's what people would do with a phone.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's what they're great for. They're great just to have with you, just to document everyday life. And I had a ton of fun doing that just yesterday, walking around. It was almost liberating to be out without my dedicated camera, but also knowing I had a camera on my phone that was capable of capturing, some stellar images.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing that I think is a little weird is the aspect ratio.
Yeah. Yeah. That does take a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah, it feels like sort of like medium format 6:7. I don't know why I could never get used to that.
Yeah.
It's like square, but like only a little bit bigger on one side.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Some of these are in New York, and
Hmm.
obviously those are mine.
And
This is in Central Park.
they look great. I mean, I'm really pleased with the colors that come out of this camera too. I think they're pretty fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are for the most part unedited, actually.
Hmm.
Yeah. This is the subway during. I'm trying to remember if I shot this in like early January or December or something like that, but
Gotcha.
I mean, I think it's a great tool for documenting your everyday life. And I feel like that's what people do with phones a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just right there with you everywhere you go. You just whip out your phone and boom, you take a shot.
Exactly.
It's just so freeing. And the
Yeah.
great thing about it as well, with it being a phone, is you don't draw as much attention to yourself either.
That is seriously one of the best things about using a phone, especially something that's such a great image taking device like
Hmm.
this. These are still in New York. Again, these are pretty much right out of camera. You know what I noticed? Smartphones, and Sony isn't uh, excused from this at all. Every one of them does one of two things. For
Hmm.
like scenes like this, it will super micro finely sharpen details
Yep.
and they look sort of weird, and then when you zoom in, that is. And then for faces, sometimes it will try to like beautify your
Hmm.
face, I guess.
Yeah, there's some skin smoothing going on there behind the scenes for sure that I have not been able to figure out how to turn off.
Yeah, I think the only way to do it is to like bathe in coconut oil or something like that. Rub some like oil all over your face.
There you go.
Yeah. I was actually kind of scared doing these, partially because this was the time when COVID was actually a little bit more prevalent throughout New York.
Hmm.
Um so I was really super careful when I was going about shooting.
Sure.
But I think it makes for a great documentary tool in times like this. Like, otherwise you'd usually just see a whole bunch of people out, but you're not right now.
Definitely. And another good thing about it as well is you have that flexibility with your lenses too. So if you want to stay further away from people, you can switch over to that 70 mm lens and you can create that distance and still get a nice shot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just you have to wire your brain to think in 70 millimeters, and I don't know how many people really have that.
Yeah, it's a weird focal length, but at least it's an option.
Yeah, and it's a safe one.
Yep.
Yeah. Plus, there's image stabilization. I believe. No, is there?
I believe it's digital for video. I'm not sure about optical for I'm not sure about for stills.
Okay. Again, just me documenting things that I found was very weird. Like normally, if you've ever been to New York, all of these seats would be filled, but
Hmm.
right now it's like, nope. These two are going to be right together, huddled right in the corner, and they're going to put as much distance as in between
Yep.
each other as possible. It's just surreal being a New Yorker and seeing this.
Oh, I bet. On the other hand, it's also nice to see people doing that too.
You have no idea, man.
Yep. Yep.
These are in Central Park. Some of these are I think this was in a neighborhood called Long Island City.
Gotcha.
Yeah. As you can see, like the dynamic range, it's not anything like what you'll get with a dedicated camera, once again.
Right, absolutely. But it's more than good enough if you're just going to be taking your images and posting them to Instagram or Facebook or any other social media platform. They'll be just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. It also can just be like a fun tool to play with.
Yeah, and that's what I was finding yesterday. Just as I was walking around, I was taking pictures. I had a huge smile on my face. It was just making photography fun. And at the end of the day, that's what it should be all about, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I felt the same way. I was like, oh man, this is so fun.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is an edited image. I
Gotcha.
know because it says raw edit.
Yep. I
Yeah,
remember seeing the unedited one earlier
yeah.
on.
And I think now, yeah, now we're back to your photos.
Yep.
There's a good boy.
There's the good boy.
Let's see the eyes. The eyes are in focus.
Yep. Yep. The IAF works really well on this phone, actually.
Am I? Yeah, there we go.
So this is ISO 1000, which I actually think looks pretty spectacular for a 1.17-inch sensor. Um, the noise is really well controlled, I think.
I agree with you.
Not bad at all.
Was this the original color in the scene though?
Yes, this is straight out of camera.
Gotcha. It's rendering colors pretty well too.
Yeah, yeah, it does a really good job.
That's Sam.
Yep.
This is what ISO?
I believe this was 640. This was a really dark part of the restaurant though.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's not terrible, and we're looking at a pretty blown up image here. And again, if this was just something that was going to be shared on social media and you're looking at it on your phone, it looks just fine.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Ooh.
Yeah, everything's good there apart from the avocado.
Are you one of those guys that hates avocado?
I am that guy.
Same here. It was shoved down my throat like crazy when I was younger. I was like,
Yep.
no more. No more. This
Definitely.
is gorgeous.
Yeah, the colors are fantastic. I was really impressed. And this was just a JPEG out of camera.
Man, you guys have much clearer skies than we do.
Yeah, just depends on the day.
Yeah. Sparkling water.
Yeah, 250. Wow, glad I didn't buy that yesterday.
250. Wow.
Yeah, man, it's just a great camera to walk around with, and you're going to get pleasing results. I was using all three lenses yesterday. I did find myself using the 16 millimeter more than anything, but again, that's just a personal preference. I love wide lenses. Um, but no matter what one you use, you're going to get nice, sharp images that and colors that just look great.
I personally think that like the wide angle lenses that we play with are probably the most fun.
Oh, definitely. They really make you see the world in a completely different way.
Yeah, like super telephotos are fun too, but
Hmm.
like wide, it's just like you can go up to anything and just like do whatever you want.
Absolutely. You can create some wicked distortion or just, yeah, you can just play around and have fun with them.
Is this the wide lens?
This one, I believe, was the 16, yes.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's really not bad at all. Again, it was challenging conditions yesterday. It kind of reminded me of England, actually.
You were saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you texted me that, I was like, "What?"
But yeah, it's great just to say, just to, and again, weather sealed as well. I believe it has an IP rating. I cannot remember the IP rating on this phone, but being a phone, it's completely weatherproof. So you can walk around in whatever weather conditions and snap away to your heart's content.
Mm-hmm. Or I mean, if you find yourself in a situation, you can accidentally pour beer on it, and it should be okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When I was looking at this image on my computer, and on the phone, when I zoomed in, the amount of detail it captured was excellent. Like you can zoom in and read the text on the top of the building quite easy.
Municipal building,
Yep.
and then the rest.
Yeah. Dedicated to the people of Oklahoma and for the perpetuation of good of government. Yeah. So you
Ah,
can, it captures a ton of detail for a tiny 12 megapixel sensor.
yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
I feel like these are the kinds of images that you would see like major filters put on Instagram.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, it was fun as well. Just at the end when we were leaving, just being able to jump into the phone and edit the images and get them ready to go in Lightroom Mobile, and knowing I didn't have to worry about that when I got home. That's one of the beautiful things about using smartphones for photography. You can do everything right there in one device.
Hmm. Now, as you were walking around in like these rainy-ish conditions, did you ever
Hmm.
feel like your grip on the phone was compromised at all?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier on. It's a very slippery phone to start off with, and then
Hmm.
when you add in conditions like this, it feels a little bit unsafe on this particular phone just because of how slick it is. I really wish they would have put maybe a little grip around, even if it was just around the very edge of the phone, just so you could, have some traction.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that. I
Hmm.
remember you talking about that earlier on as well too. It's just I'm now thinking about it more in terms of like, hey, your hands are shivering.
Yeah.
And like let's say you've got a little bit of coffee in you in the beginning of the morning and like you're jittery and like it's cold, but it's rainy or it's sleeting or something like that. That's got to be even worse.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, a little bit of grip would go a long way on this camera for sure.
Mhm.
And I took this image as well to show the detail because it's got some very ornate details on this building. And again, the camera was able to capture a lot of detail. I was really quite impressed.
It seems it.
Yeah.
And when I was going through your images, this one's actually my favorite.
That's what I said to Sam yesterday. I was like, this is my favorite one. I love the straight lines and the roundness of this rock at the bottom here. Just I think it looks great. And it
Yeah,
looks
but
good in black and white.
yeah, but it's also like this versus this, like they're
Yep.
almost equalizing each other out in symmetry.
Definitely. Definitely. This was my favorite part of the day. This was coffee day. This is coffee time.
I was wondering, I'm like, oh, it looks like a food truck.
Yeah, it's actually an old double-decker bus from England. They turned into a coffee shop.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. So I think I included the three images for that one. Maybe that was a 16. There was a 24 and a 70 millimeter. Did I send all of those to you? I kind of took them so I could show the differences between the lenses. Maybe I didn't send them
Mm,
to you.
I didn't remember seeing them,
Gotcha.
but they might be a little bit later on. These duck photos, man, like all the details and the colors.
Yeah, and again, boom, tracking the eye of the duck as I was taking the picture.
Yeah. So it looks to me like, did he actually have green feathers up top?
Yes.
Okay, so it's capturing it accurately.
Yep, it's very accurate.
Yeah. I love just like the color of the grass, like, and then the sharp divide going into the green.
Hmm. Yeah, it captures that perfectly.
I feel like if I look close enough, I'll see like a monster in the mist or something like that, right?
I'm sure Godzilla's probably over there somewhere.
All right, I'm not gonna pixel peep then.
But yeah, no, I mean it's now I can see some distortion in the lens on this one. This was a 16.
Mm-hmm.
I can see some bowing in the building, but for a wide angle lens, I think that's it to be expected, really.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, it does a really good job on the wide end of things.
It's also just fun if you do stuff like that too.
Definitely.
Yeah. This is wide angle as well.
This is the 16, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I took this to try and get some bokeh. It is possible. I mean, but again, it's physics, and you know, you got the tiny sensor, you can do it. Um, but if you're going to be jumping into using a smartphone camera, I wouldn't be expecting you to be able to get, you know, some terrific bokeh out of it. It's really not possible.
Yeah. I mean, you can do it with like the Google Photos AI kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. You can.
With
Yeah.
like the fake bokeh, but like with the pro camera app, you can't do it.
Exactly.
That's the end of it.
That's it. Yeah.
Sharing the screen. All right. So, summation, what are you thinking about this phone? Like, in terms of it being like a companion camera to you?
I think it's a brilliant companion camera if you don't mind using the Android ecosystem, that is. If you're a Sony shooter and you want a phone that you'll just be able to flip over to and just hit the ground running with, it's absolutely brilliant. Even if you don't have a Sony camera, I think the way that the UI is laid out and the functions and features that come with it make it just a really fun camera to just go out and adventure with.
And do you think it's worth like the? I was just looking up the cost. It's almost like 1,100, right?
Yeah, I think it's 1,099 for the unlocked international version.
Yeah. Do you think that's worth the cost?
I do. I think it's a premium phone, and I think it has some fantastic features in there, which will really help you, you know, use your creativeness to get some great images with.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah,
All right. Well, it doesn't look like there are other questions here on Zoom, but on Facebook, someone just posted a link to a shop.
interesting.
Uh, nope. No questions.